everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for another edition of the Arms Bumanlag Project Live. So good to be back with you. This is the first time ever we've taken a week off. We had no show last week, live every Tuesday night here in YQG on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And I want to just give a big shout out to my guest who was ready to go, but we could not make it happen on our end here at the Little Heart Studios in Amherstburg. Miss Lindsay Pentland, who's a good friend of mine in the healthcare sector, who is now a traveling nurse, giving us a frontline perspective on what nurses are up against during this soon-to-be third year of the COVID pandemic. So we're actually going to circle back with Lindsay in the next couple of weeks, so I can't wait to bring her on the show. She's just a phenomenal person. So shout out to Lindsay. I know she's listening, watching live. Speaking of listening and watching this program, you can find previous episodes. We're in season 2. I think we're like 87 episodes in and counting. You can check it out on YouTube, Facebook. Also listen to past episodes at your leisure on Apple Podcasts and podcasts wherever you get them across the World Wide Web. So what can I say? There's a lot of talk in the Windsor-Essex area about the upcoming municipal elections. This is something that I covered back in my time during traditional broadcasting. And I wanted to bring on somebody who I think is going to make some great change for the city of Windsor and region. He's had an amazing 8 years representing the constituents of Ward 4. It's been his honor to be their voice essentially at City Hall and represent their wishes for building the city that they want to call home. He is campaigning to become the next mayor of the City of Windsor. So we're going to dive into a number of issues right here live tonight that the City of Windsor is facing. Things that, quite honestly, that we covered 4 years ago on the CBC. Whether or not there's been development on those issues, we'll get his take on those. And we want you to message in with your questions live with my guest this evening. The very generous with his time, Mr. Chris Holt is joining us live on the show. Chris, good to see you, my man. Thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure, Art. It's my pleasure. Anytime I could get together with you, it's always a good time.
I appreciate it more than you know. And, you know, when you made the announcement, I reached out to your comms team and I said, listen, I got to get Chris on for an informal chat. I think there's a lot of thick ground that we can cover, a lot of things that we can talk about. And a lot of things to talk about the election, where the City of Windsor is here in 2022 in August. We'll take comments as they come in live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter for you. First things first, as I kind of open up the show, and I know you're a first-time guest here, how have you been during the pandemic with your family, with your business, with what you do day to day as a counselor? I mean, I said to somebody the other day, it's weird because the last 2 years really feel like 20 for a lot of folks. How have you been?
Yeah, it's definitely an odd time. I wear multiple hats. So my day job, so I'm with Ford Motor Company. I've been with Ford Motor Company for 28 years. I work in the maintenance department at Ford, and nothing really changed there. You know, obviously, you know, we're wearing our personal protective equipment and social distancing, that type of thing. But I'm normally off in my corner doing council work anyway. So I'm social distancing all the time when I'm at Ford. So nothing really changed there. The business itself, well, anybody who works or is involved whatsoever in the hospitality industry knows that it was just a monumentally messed up time. You know, we haven't quite recovered fully yet. I'm hoping we do. I don't know how many of the people who frequent bars, restaurants, that type of thing are coming back. Maybe people are getting used to actually taking out and spending some more time at home in front of Netflix. But it's been tough. I say that for the whole industry. The whole industry is suffering still, and I'm really looking forward to that getting back to normal. It was we were only 2 years old when the pandemic started, and we've been in pandemic times longer than we've been in normal times. So I fingers crossed that the hospitality industry rebounds, and you know, the employee situation, finding staff to work. It's been tough. It's been tough. But my family's been awesome. We've been spending a lot of time together, and that aspect of the pandemic has been fantastic. You know, nothing like spending time with your wife and children.
Yeah, I agree with you too. I think hopefully for a lot of folks who have had that opportunity to be with loved ones and sort of hunker in place and kind of rediscover why they do what they do. I know that's been a big paradigm shift for me professionally, is to kind of be around my family and kind of assess what's happening in life day to day. And then, you know, fast forward to everything that's been going on in the City of Windsor. We've got the comments rolling in from people watching on Facebook this evening. We're live with Chris Holt. Shout out to Motor City Chrysler for sponsoring this season of the show. Thanks to Jason and the team for that. We'll get to some of the comments coming in for Chris here in the next couple of minutes, but things are heating up. Election is coming. down the pipe pretty soon in October. Let's talk about this and your decision to throw your hat into the ring for the next mayor of the city of Windsor. Was that an easy choice for you, Chris, or was it something that you've been sort of deliberating with your family and your wife?
Okay, right now you see me thinking whether or not to give you the scripted campaign of this, Arms. Uh, but, no, I would say it was about 2 years ago. I decided I wasn't going to run for council anymore. I had pretty much had it with a lot of the roadblocks and a lot of the impediments that were being put in front of me when it came to just to bringing forth real progressive ideas, investing in the city, and really making our neighborhoods great places to live and love. But it was it from there. It went to if I'm not going to be running for councillor,
Mhm.
because of a lot of the issues that I was dealing with from the mayor's office. Um, I think I owe it to the citizens of Windsor to actually try to replace the mayor, because if it's not just me that's suffering from a lot of these things. It's a lot of people, and there's a lot of support out there for most, if not all, of the ideas and things that I've been championing around the council table for 8 years, and I've gotten a tremendous amount of support. I got 80% of the vote in the 2018 election. That's unheard of. Nobody ever gets 80% of the vote. So these progressive sort of new urbanism, invest in the city, make the city a wonderful place to actually call home, resonates with everybody. And so I decided that I was going to put these theories, put these ideas to the test citywide, and that's why I opted to run for council as opposed to just retiring quietly on my own.
Chris, there's so much to unpack, and I'm so glad you decided to spend a little bit of time with me tonight, and I appreciate it because I love how you are saying that neighborhoods need to be stronger, and I think that's very much something that needs to be unpacked, right? Because I remember, I mean, I'm born and raised in Windsor. My family, our first house was just on Jeanette in downtown Windsor, and then we moved out to Walker Home Sites during the late '80s, early '90s, and my first house downtown Windsor. I was in Vic Park Place for almost 11 years, overlooking A Channel. I look at the different neighborhoods and the different boroughs, so to speak, in Windsor, and I remember a time, not to sound like the old man Arms here on the show, where you had these sort of unique flavors to the different neighborhoods, and you had that whole safety element too. And I think I go back to even when I was a downtown resident for about 10, 11 years myself, while I was working at A Channel. Um, we had our problems, but I don't think it was as severe or as sort of an epidemic, so to speak, in terms of the opioid crisis or even homelessness and all these different things that have been these issues that I think Windsorites as a whole have been talking about. I mean, geez, when I was on CBC 4 years ago, these are things that we had posed Mayor Dilkins in our year-end review as well with him. And it just seems that things, pandemic aside, continue to, I don't want to say worsen, but the problem is becoming more and more prevalent. So I'm happy to hear you say, good communities start strong neighborhoods. Now, building those neighborhoods up again, do you think that's going to be a multi-year strategy, in your opinion, to kind of get where we need to be to make stronger neighborhoods happen?
Oh yeah, 100%. It won't happen in my lifetime for the neighborhoods to come back to the point where they are capable of coming back. There's so much potential here for our neighborhoods, and so many things that we have to rediscover that we've forgotten. And the way we build our cities is intrinsic in the quality of life that we all deserve, and it really touches upon so many different aspects within the operations of City Hall. And you mentioned about the opioid addictions, homelessness, mental health issues. These are things that and it sounds cliche, but every single municipality, the 444 municipalities over across Ontario, we're all dealing with it in some way or the other. So we're all struggling with it. We're all struggling with the downloading of mental health services from the province and to the municipalities. There's been so many things that have just built up in creating the crisis that we're experiencing now. And quite frankly, it's all coming down. It all happened because of cost cutting measures. It's people don't like paying a lot of money, and the province decided, we're not going to pay it, we're going to download it, and what we're seeing is the result of years and years and years of austerity budgets and downloading, and we're paying the price for that right now. It didn't all just happen. It was a slow build up to this point that we're experiencing right now.
Yeah, it's a tricky line to balance, right, Chris? I mean, we're Amherstburg residents now, my wife and I know that's a big sticking point for a lot of folks here in town that I speak to, is about, value for what we pay in taxes. And, you take a look at some of those legacy projects that happen or are being talked about versus sort of the necessities, your roads, your street lights, different things like that. So I'd imagine as a city councilor, outside of being the mayor, I mean, you have to sort of balance your wants with your needs, right? Things that are going to sustain the neighborhood long term.
Of course, but you also have to invest wisely and build up your city to the point where it is a sustainable entity. Yeah. If you break down, go back to your first part about people not wanting to pay taxes or increase taxes. If we were to sit down, you and I here on the program, and break down the individual costs of everything you are receiving with your tax dollars, from roads construction and maintenance to water treatment and delivery to sanitation removal and all these things, and you were to opt out of all that and pay for it privately, you would come running back to your municipality after a month, because we get such a good deal on the municipal services that we receive. And I hear over and over and over again that we pay too much, and we need to scale it back. The majority of the times, the people that say that are very comfortable and wealthy and have everything they need. They don't need public transit. They don't need pools and community centers. They don't need these things that we're axing to keep the taxes low. So there's 20% of the population out there that's doing very well, and the only thing they're worried about is whether or not the roads in front of their house is smooth, whether their grass clippings get picked up, and whether the water turns on and off. Those are the only things they worry about with their property taxes. But there's a vast majority of the population of the city that needs a lot more and pays a lot more, because we might keep our property taxes low, but the user fees are creeping up every single budget. And so some people are paying the same or less property taxes, and others are paying exorbitantly more. And it's unbalanced, it's unsustainable, and it's something that we really do have to address, because at the end of the day, we have to come back and we have to say, what kind of city do we want to live in? What kind of city do we want to call home? What kind of city will attract our children that moved out to go to school in Toronto or Alberta? What kind of city do we have to build that attracts them to come back? Because we want to be near our kids. We want our grandkids to be able to ride their bikes over to Grandma and Grandpa's house and spend time together. Because at the end of the day, as you get old, you realize that that's the only thing that matters. It's that those family connections, as we were talking about earlier. And it takes a lot more than cheap taxes for that.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a great point, Chris. We got a lot of comments coming in here on Facebook, so we'll get to a few of those in the next little bit here. Chris Holt is my guest. If you're listening to us after the fact on our podcast, don't forget you can subscribe and get those updates as we drop shows every week. A couple of sticking points from folks in the audience. Diane chiming in, future's looking bright. Thank you, Diane, for that. We appreciate the comment. Christine saying, Chris Holt for a better transit Windsor service. This is something I wanted to talk to you about too, because I know at the start of the pandemic, safety issues aside, that was a big sticking point for a lot of folks, because again, you talk about people who utilize Transit Windsor because it is a lifeline for them. Expanding that particular service for residents across the city, I think is going to be essential, I think, for people to start using Transit Windsor more, and then making it more accessible to more neighborhoods. Would that be something that you would be actively looking if you were the next mayor, Chris?
100%. And I've been trying to do it every single budget. It's embarrassing. Windsor was the only municipality in Ontario to halt transit services during the pandemic. Unfortunately, we've got a mayor's office that doesn't have a lot of vision when it comes to city building. Doesn't really see the importance in community building aspect, economic development aspect, equity aspect of a good transit system. And he famously said when we were a few of us were arguing during a budget meeting to fund, I believe it was the 518X. It was the next line in the transit master plan. And he basically said it's the worst business decision he's ever heard of. So he's not a fan of transit, and I believe it's because he doesn't understand the full implications of not having a good transit system. And it's sad. It's an economic development tool. It's an equity tool. It is a sustainability and environmental tool. It is something. You think about all the great cities you go to, and they all have quality transit systems where you do not need to own two or three vehicles to participate in society. You can get by with one vehicle. You could choose not to have a vehicle if your transit system's that good. But with gas approaching $2 a liter, it was over $2 a liter there for a while. And then you turn around and you tell the population that we're not going to be spending any more money in transit. Sorry, guys. That's a very selfish thing to do. And so I do commit to fully implementing. Eventually, it's an expensive plan. The brand new public transportation plan that council has fully adopted. We're not investing the adequate amount of money to actually bring it forward, bring it into reality, though.
Colleen says to you, Chris, on the feed, we rely on transit, unfortunately, for medical reasons, but we're thankful it's up and running, but it was extremely difficult during the pandemic. Yeah, I mean, you talk again, like the haves and have nots, like we're lucky because my wife and I both have our own cars, but I just didn't know the amount of medical appointments we do for my son. And just thinking about, having to rely on Transit Windsor, it is very much a lifeline for folks. But again, I mean, I don't want to be facetious, Chris, but if you haven't really walked a mile in somebody's shoes, you don't really know how vital something is to them, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like it's one of those things where if these people rely on it, it's an essential service and it should be expanded on. Like you said, other cities are doing it and doing it well.
And one of the things we have to get past, and there's many metropolitan areas, many municipalities out there that have gotten over this stigma that it's only for a certain part of the population. I forget where the quote was. I even forget the quote, but it basically says that a truly great city, a truly great city has the wealthy riding transit along with everybody else, and it's true. Once you start to see people with briefcases and in business attire getting on your transit system, you're building an equitable and sustainable transportation system. We can't just keep on widening and building our roads. We can't do it. It's fiscally unsustainable for us to do it. As it stands now, the people in the core of the city that live in 100-year-old neighborhoods supplement and subsidize the people in the far-flung suburbs because it costs that much more to provide services and amenities to the people out in the suburbs than it does in the core of the city. And that's an imbalance. We're asking the people that are traditionally can afford it the least to subsidize for the people who can afford it the most, type of thing. And it's an imbalance that costs our city. We have a $1 billion infrastructure deficit. We can't afford to fix all the bridges we have. We can't afford to fix all the roads we have. Yet we continue to build more because we're not offering real sustainable transportation options like public transit, like active transportation. We pay them lip service. And that does every citizen in the city a disservice. And we have to rethink this. We have to ask ourselves why we do this, why we behave in this manner, because it will benefit everybody, whether you live in Fontainebleau or Sandwich or Roseland. It will benefit you to have a great transportation system, which includes public transit.
I agree with you. And some comments coming in here on Twitter too. Tammy just commenting saying, I'd love to see, Chris, honestly, some more attention paid to the downtown core, the residents, the business owners, tourists, housing, and of course, the most vulnerable population. So much more needs to be done to make it more appealing and ensuring that supports are in place for those in need. It's long overdue. I just to throw my hat in the ring on that too. I mean, I agree with that. I remember all the days even back on CKLW, even 10 years ago, Chris, talking about, geez, the 2010 elections, and the candidates we had at the table kicking the can down the road about what they were going to do to change downtown Windsor. And I think we've had some wins in downtown Windsor, but I don't think it's been as forthright as the potential for a fantastic strip down Olette, what could have been.
Hmm.
I mean, I remember going down there again as '80s in the kid as a kid in the '80s, I should say, and you had restaurants that you could go into, and you had stores, and it was pretty vibrant as well. But like, what do you think can be done? I know Reno. Ward 3 Councilor, outgoing Councilor Reno, has been extremely vocal about what has been done, what can be done. How can we kind of push downtown to be sort of the jewel of our city again?
Well, one of the things in your memories going back to the '80s, one of the big differences between the '80s and today is not so much everybody likes to blame the Devonshire Mall and the different shopping opportunities that are available to us now with Amazon and online shopping. But the big difference between the '80s and today is just the sheer quantity of people who live downtown.
Sure.
So we had big families, thriving neighborhoods right in the core of the city. Where you have those big population densities, you have supporting businesses, you have the grocery stores, you have the farmers markets, you have all this stuff that support a larger population density. When that population density started to move away from the downtown, we started to spread out. We started having less kids, so the household sizes were smaller, and we started to move out, enjoying the prosperity that our hard work gave us. And we bought our quarter acre in this brand new subdivision called Forest Glade. So once we started to do that, there was not as much reason for businesses and the service industries to be downtown. They followed the people out to the neighborhoods that they moved to. That is the big difference between the two. I'm wondering how many of your listeners know that within the last year, the downtown has seen its first grocery store pop up in I don't know, 20, 30, 40 years. That's happening because Reno and I have been so successful in really pushing the community improvement plan, the downtown enhancement strategy, that I believe we're at about 1,800 residential units that are either built or permitted in our downtown. That's 1,800 units, give or take, with two people living in each. So that's an additional 3,600 people living and working and playing downtown. Once you do that and you reach that critical mass of that population density, and we're always talking about population densities. Population densities support public transport, civic amenities like swimming pools and that type of thing, but also all the private amenities like the grocery stores and the hardware stores and the butcher and the baker and the candlestick maker. That's what we're pushing for, and we're getting to the point now where the critical mass is getting there. The flywheel effect, it's starting to pick up speed. Take a look at what the Hive looks like on Palishir. It's and they're going to be building another development up between Victoria and Palishir on Wyandotte. It's exciting stuff, and we are seeing movement, but we can't take our feet off the brakes. We
Sure.
finally got to that point where we're starting to get the recipe right. This is tasting. It's not too sweet. It's not too bitter. It's starting to taste really good, and we're starting to see the effect of it. Because once we get a critical mass of people living and working downtown, that's when we're going to see a lot of these empty storefronts sort of cleaned up and occupied by more people doing your hair, more people offering some of the goods that people need to suit their lives living downtown, and we're on our way. Actually, I know it doesn't seem like it doesn't feel like it, but we are on our way, and we really have to keep pushing that gas.
Yeah, and I think the Hive is a great example of that too, Chris. And my son and I had a chance to check out the downtown Windsor Farmers Market last summer. We haven't had a chance to get out there this summer, but I was so impressed with the quality of entertainment, the vendors, the vibe that was along Palishir. I thought it was very well done and much needed for the core to sort of bring that neighborhood synergy back. You talk about a lot of the things that you've done as a council person and working alongside Reno, and collaboration in the realm of politics is so essential. Uh, has it been hard? As mayor, do you think that you'd be able to kind of unite council members to say, hey, we got to push some stuff forward to make sure that this happens for the community?
Yeah, I've got a fairly decent working relationship with all members of council. We have a lot. I've got a lot of overlapping goals and objectives with them, more so with some than others, type of thing. But I
Mhm.
understand what is really needed in all sections and areas of the community, and I can just because of my education and because of how I spend my time reading, I understand the interplay between what makes a good community, and what the benefits are of building those good communities to everybody, and I know that I could work with absolutely every member of city council, regardless of what neighborhood they're in, and really provide those neighborhood building, community building assets that everybody needs. There you are. My
No,
dad.
that's
My dad was trying to call me.
he's like, you're on with arms. I got to call him, right? Doesn't know you're using your phone, but that's okay. No worries, my
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
Um, no, and I think that's crucial, right? I think, and listen, I talked to somebody who was on council. They're no longer on council. And I talked to them last year. I consider them a personal friend. And I said to this person, why in this political climate, and like, I'll be honest, like, I know you're doing your broadcast. I'm on this thing all the time as well. Um, we've seen sort of to talk to Christia Freeland, what happened to her most recently in terms of politics, right? We've seen the vitriol come out from people, and people are angry. I think they use social media very much as a platform to lash out without knowing the person, the individual on the other side. But it's, I would say it's a hard time, Chris. When you're a politician, you are putting yourself out there, you're putting your family out there, and you almost have to be accessible. I hate to say it, 24/7. And when I was talking to this person previously, they said, it's a different game than it was 2, 3, 4, even 10 years ago, because it's almost like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. But then you also want to be that person, and I'm just speaking from sort of my circle of influence. Some of us are very tired of hearing the saber rattling and the chest beating, and we want people to kind of say, yes, you have a different opinion, I have an opinion, let's find something that's equitable for the people that we're representing so we can push the envelope forward, right? And I think there's that sort of quiet denominator where people want, and this is just my opinion again, Chris, people want individuals who can unite people together and say, yes, we may have a difference of opinion, but that's okay. Let's try to find an equitable solution. I guess the term I'm looking for, Chris, is sort of that person to reach across the aisle, but to also make that change happen.
Yeah, and I want to get back to the whole with Chrystia Freeland and what happened with politics after this,
Sure.
but it's absolutely necessary. Yeah, and it is it's something that I've been practicing. I've got a lot of wins in the past 8 years. I've got a lot of I've earned a lot of check marks of what I wanted to accomplish, and that was through cooperation and talking and reaching across the aisle per se, and really working with my fellow council members and to understand the need both in my ward and citywide as far as a lot of the issues that go. So I'm very proud of a lot of the work that I have done in City Hall, and I really do believe more so than the current mayor that I could do that. And because I've been divided, I've been pushed out of conversations by this current mayor. This current mayor has told me to stop whining and get on the train in a public session. Like, what does that do for morale? What does that do to people that are sitting around listening? That is emblematic of a lot of the divisive talk that we were talking about, and it's something that I understand and I can do. I can move forward with that. But to get back to the whole politics thing, and I'm glad you brought that up because it's something that I know in my world it's not really no, we're not talking about it enough, and that's the impact on our future politicians. That's
Sure.
the impact on the women and the people of color that are tempted. They have an interest in getting involved in City Hall. They're more likely to step back and say, this is just too scary for me. if we allow this kind of sentiment to carry on. And that's what scares me, because we need more women. We need more Black people of color in there, bringing their experiences to City Hall, to the policies that we enact, so it better reflects the community we live in. And I'm very afraid of what the tenor of the discussions are, the language that we're using with one another. It has become so divisive and so angry, that, I don't know if I would want to jump in and run for city council right now. It does not seem like it's worth it. It's worth getting beat up about.
Yeah, I especially for, I know that people say, oh yeah, public servants to get like, you're like I said, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. And it's like, at the end of the day, yeah, okay, hold me accountable, but at the same token, leave my family out of this. The personal attacks, the people who have the picture of their truck as a profile picture, who are leaving different comments on your, it's like, I don't know. I don't know where we're going with that. I think social media is great to hear those concerns. And I think, like, when you approach your constituents and the public that you serve with an open ear and a shoulder to lean on, sometimes I think people, they want to be heard. And I think somewhere in that sort of back and forth that you have, you can pick up those little nuggets to say, hey, wait a second, this is something that maybe I don't see with my worldview. This is
Yeah.
something that I'm not aware of, that I can bring back and say, wait a second, this is something that we didn't consider. So I think that's very refreshing on your behalf, and certainly from folks to say, yeah, this is, we're here for the people, and let's try to find something equitable for everyone to sort of lean on.
We just have to be respectful with one another. I don't care whether we're talking politics, sports, religion, what have you. We just have to get back to that time where we treated each other with mutual respect, and we all come away better from that, from having a discussion where we respect the person that we're speaking with. And whether that, like I said, whatever arena it is that we're missing that in, we need to rediscover that. I know people are frustrated. I know people don't feel like they're being listened to, and that's really what propels me deeper into having discussions with people, rather than simply turning around and walking away.
Sure.
But it only takes you so far. And if there is a little modicum of respect coming back to me, I will continue having that conversation. It's when we see videos like what happened with the deputy prime minister that really, you can't recover from that.
Yeah, you shake your head at that kind of stuff. Speaking of arenas, I want to say kudos to you for talking about the barn. Because I've got, like, honestly, like, again, and this is why I love doing the podcast, because, like, I have no program director, I have no producer. It's like me and, to a point, my wife kind of talking about topics and like things. But man, like, I remember being there for groundbreaking for the WFCU Center back in 2007. Like, I was there with the AM 800A team, and I thought to myself, and I've been to the WFCU Center for many times for Spitfire things, for Cirque du Soleil things. It is a good center. It's a good center. But I thought to myself, is this not like Detroit taking the Lions out of the core and putting them in Pontiac and then bringing them back to Ford Field, right? Like, I just, like, we would, like, literally, Chris, like, my wife and I went to go see a Cirque show a couple of years ago, and it's like, where are we going to eat? Like, we can't, there's no walking, like, we can't have a couple of drinks like you're in downtown Detroit going to Chelly's before you go to the game. Like, and the barn, I get it, it's an old infrastructure, but then they were talking about doing a market there years ago. I know Steve Bell, a good buddy of mine, talking about, maybe turning it into a Spitfire museum or something like that. I know Dardis at the Windsor Express, having some success there, and then having some success at the Coliseum. So I'm just basically saying, I'm glad somebody's talking about these things that sort of should, to go back to our downtown core discussion, Chris, funnel people to a vibrant downtown, to bring in people to say, yeah, I can catch a Spitfire game, and I can walk from my condo, or I can go have a couple of drinks and have a nice meal and go catch a Spitfires play, or go catch the latest Cirque show. So I'm glad that there's that discussion going, because I was thinking, like, what the heck are we doing here?
Well, it's the whole experience, right? It's the whole kit and caboodle. And thank you for that. It's really an exciting plank of the platform. I got to spend time with Dardis. Anybody who knows Dardis knows he has way more energy than any human being should ever be allowed to. And I really, I come out of every single conversation with Dardis, just revved up. We've got to get stuff done. We have to move. We have to move. He's done so much legwork and got so many community partners and so much money dedicated to what his vision is of the barn. It's a shame. It's just it's embarrassing that we let it sort of rot on the vine over there, because when you never see that much consensus come around anything. You never see that many people. There were relatives of former owners of the barn, willing to put money into naming rights for this thing. There's people want to be there again. They want to be inside that building and experiencing that corner of McDougall and Wyandotte like it used to be, and it used to be phenomenal. It's like you're saying, the bars, restaurants, the ice cream, what have you. That was a vibrant hub, and the amazing thing is, when the Spitfires were playing there, we never had any parking issues. It's like we got there how we got there. Because we were living around there. Maybe we rode our bike, or we walked, or took transit. A bunch of people took cars, but we didn't need that many parking spaces. Look how many parking spaces we need at the WFCU Center, because everybody drives in, goes to the game, and then drives out. There's no spillover effect for the neighborhood. There's none of the community leveraging of things that happen in a downtown core. So, excuse me. So it's exciting to see that. We also partnered, or got together with members of the Black community as well. So the McDougall Street corridor, it's a historical area of the city. It's one of the oldest settlements of traditional Windsor Black communities is in that McDougall Street corridor. So what we've the Center for Cities from Windsor Law at the University of Windsor, they got commissioned to do up a research project about everything that used to be in that section of the city, and they're doing a walking tour and really highlighting the rich historical aspect of the McDougall Street corridor. So what my plan is there is to partner with a Black historical district with the largest Black owned business within the city, and really leverage those two, and watch the ripple effects consume that entire neighborhood with all the goodness that would come out of it. So there are there are so many good people, so many good ideas out there. We need to get them all in a room. We need to collaborate and work together, as opposed to one person coming in and saying, this is my way or the highway, and if I don't get what I want, I'm going to kill the whole project. And I think that collaboration extends outside of city council and to the community at large, because there's a lot of great people, a lot of great ideas out there that we need to nurture, we need to fertilize, we need to see to their respectful ending of what they can bring to the city.
Yeah, I think that's it's brilliant too, Chris, because I think I've often said, like, one of the things that I noticed even when I was at the CBC covering some of the different things, even in the 2018 elections, was the fact that we look at Windsor from a holistic point of view, where we were in 2018, where we are now in 2022. Now, you've got the battery plant coming down the pipeline. You've got all these spin-off jobs coming down the pipeline. I can tell you from a real estate perspective, with some of the clients that I work with from a real estate lens, the amount of interest that we're seeing from other communities surrounding Windsor that make up multiculturalism, quite honestly, that makes up the fabric of Canada, that want to come down here to Windsor. So to tap into those cultures who are already setting up shop in Windsor and providing folks a chance to sort of, even with the Black community, have a place to be proud and to certainly showcase their heritage and become that vibrant part, which they already are, but to have that sort of hub, and to do it in a way that's, like you said, not bringing somebody in the room and saying, this is how we're doing it, and saying, how can we do this? What do you folks like? How can we make this work for you? I think that's a recipe for success, because I look, again, a lot of our families up in Mississauga, and it's like Mississauga, I mean, very different from Windsor, obviously, but you take a look at the different communities that have sort of set up in Mississauga, and it's so interesting to see and so great to see these sort of boroughs pop up around the city itself. So it'll be nice to have that sort of vision in place as opposed to just saying, hey, we're doing this here, we're doing this there, and we're going to plop this here.
Yeah, we're Canadian, right? It's we're the multicultural mosaic. Oh, my life is enriched when I have exposure to the more cultures and the more interesting traditions and the more lifestyles that I have that I didn't experience, that I didn't grow up with. My life is much better. I'm sure I'm not the only one that enjoys that. You know, when we have the Carousel of Nations, that's my Christmas time. I get to, run around and experience all these different cultures and traditions, and I absolutely love it. And if we embrace that and bring that into the planning and development of our city, we will benefit culturally, economically. We will benefit. It's just so good for Windsor, and yeah, anything that I could do to actually bring that forward and help that achieve success is a great thing. I'd be proud to do that.
Chris, with a few minutes left to go here on the show before we let you go, and again, I appreciate your time. It's great to chat with you too. What else do you want people to know about Chris Holt? What Chris Holt can do for the city, and getting into the next couple of months here as you continue to campaign towards mid-October here.
It's a great question. I thank you, and I thank you for asking it, Arms. I think the one thing that I've been hearing, the absolute most about people's opinions of Chris Holt and what they feel about Chris Holt, they think I'm a Walkerville. Yes, I live in Walkerville. I adore my neighborhood, as everybody should adore their neighborhood. But I was born and raised in South Windsor. My family moved out to Riverside. I have really experienced numerous neighborhoods and different aspects of the city. So I really feel that that I know the vast majority of what makes Windsor tick. And pigeonholing me as the downtown guy, as the core guy, as the Walkerville guy, I think does a little disservice to reaching the potential that I know we can reach. There is so much untapped potential, Arms, in this city. That it makes me cry a little bit. We get to a certain point where we've achieved our basic needs, and we say, okay, that's good enough. Let's move on to the next idea. We not move any further than the purely adequate investments, developments that we need to achieve our basic needs, and we can do so much better in all corners of the community. We are leaving so much on the table, and we need to see and have the foresight to actually cross that finish line, as opposed to just stopping midway through and taking a break, which I feel we do so often. We've got so many master plans that are sitting on benches right now that could help propel us to reach that full potential of the city of Windsor, yet we don't do it. And I really feel that we need to. If we're going to treat the residents of this city with the respect that they deserve, we need to put our money where our mouth is. We need to fully move forward with the plans that we're putting in place, because we agree that these things are great, and achieve the greatness that I know we can achieve. I know it's there, Arms.
Well, I wish you nothing but the best, my man. I know October will be here soon. Your social media game is on point. It's very refreshing to see some positive, community-based, dare I say, less talking heads and more people supporting the cause, right? So I think it's very well done. God bless you, you and your family. I appreciate the time, my man, and all the best of luck to you. I'll circle back with you, hopefully, post-October, okay?
Beautiful. Thanks a ton, Arms. Really appreciate the time.
Anytime, my man. Chris Holt, who is joining us here, councilman and also mayoral candidate for the City of Windsor. Great guy. I'm happy to have him on the program to kind of talk about his platform, where he sees Windsor, and talk about some of your questions coming in through the Facebook feed and also on Twitter this evening too. Appreciate everyone joining us live on the stream this evening. So that's going to do it for this edition of the show. Don't forget, we are back again next week. Hard to believe it's the month of September already, but it is. And we will see you back here Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock here on the Arms Bumanlag Project, brought to you by Motor City Chrysler. And they know community, they know cars. Check them out today at Walker and Tecumseh Road. And you can find out a little bit more about them by sponsoring this particular podcast. They are huge supporters of the show, so we appreciate Jason and his entire team at Motor City Chrysler. That's going to do it for tonight's show. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you back here next week.